people have talked in recent years about the original sin of America a lot. We've heard this from the 1619 Project and so on. The original sin of America is slavery.
Slavery and genocide.
And genocide and so on. I have always found this a very, very interesting argument because in my view, everybody has an original sin. Every society has sinned historically. You could say that every society on earth has some original sin. It's odd to only focus on some societies. Again, like, what is the original sin of the Maldives? Asks no one. You could do this with every society on earth, but we don't. We do it only with Western societies. But in the case of Israel, it is seen as being, as I said earlier, the ultimate Western state, the ultimate version, the ultimate place you can extrapolate out every Western sin onto and make them to be the ones who are guilty of it. But if you go to the root of what not just the Khomeinists, the Iranian Revolutionary Government, the Hamas, all of their proxies, and so many parts of the Arab world and the Muslim world, it's not just them that now believes, but a lot of people in the West who seem to believe the creation of the state of Israel was itself the original sin, that it was a mistake, and that therefore pretty much anything Israel does, including in self-defense, is illegitimate. Now, I've come to this conclusion, and in part I mention it because I believe that anyone who believes in Israel's right to exist and its right to defend itself and its people has to contend with the fact that this lie, this smear is out there, and is far more common than anyone would like to realize. And, there's lots of ways in which one might counter that, but let me just quickly give the example that my friend and colleague Natasha Hausdorff, a very distinguished British barrister who was on stage with me at the Monk debates in Toronto last year, where we debated against an utterly insane Israeli journalist from Haaretz and the Al Jazeera employee Mehdi Hassan. Natasha found it's often hard to come up with an original way into some of these problems because everyone's been talking about them for so many years and lots of clever people have talked about them. And Natasha gave an analogy I thought was really interesting. She said, if a couple, become pregnant, a woman becomes pregnant in a couple, the mother and father might discuss whether or not the pregnancy should come to full term or not. They might discuss it. This is not a debate about the legality or ethics of abortion, but simply that it might be a conversation that a couple have. They might have that conversation through the first trimester and the second trimester. Religious people, among others, might be quite rightly concerned about that discussion going on in the third trimester. But if the baby is born and grows up and is in its 70s, you are no longer talking about abortion, you're talking about murder. And the people who are talking about the original sin of Israel being rectified in 2025 are not talking about an abortion. They are talking not just about murder, they're talking about genocide. These are would-be genocidists. If Hamas, Hezbollah, and their foolish defenders in the West actually have a non-genocidal plan for the undoing of the recreation of the State of Israel in 1948, I'm assuming they have very well-developed plans for how to get the Jewish community of Israel out of the region. Where are their plans? I don't see them.
It's the same issue as those that are saying the Jews don't need to be to guard themselves. We will guard the Jews. When you ask them who are the guardians, they say they don't know. Same thing here.
And it's worse than that, as I've seen too much up close firsthand. I'll give you an example. late last year, I was in Lebanon again, and I was embedded with the IDF and hadn't been back since 2006. And there was the UNIFIL, the United Nations peacekeeping troops in southern Lebanon, who've been placed there since before the 2006 war and are worse than useless. Worse than useless.
Why do you say worse than useless?
Well,
useless
because
is bad enough.
Useless is very bad. But worse than useless is that people have the misunderstanding that something good is happening there. We have peacekeeping troops there. If you said we don't have any peacekeeping troops, there's no peacekeeping troops, that's useless. But thinking, we have peacekeeping troops there who do less than nothing is worse than useless, by my definition. Anyhow, the point is that some kilometers in, I go to see a Hezbollah tunnel complex, which had been abandoned a couple of days earlier. They left behind a lot of their kit, the weaponry, medical kits from Iran, some weaponry from Russia and North Korea and other useful, charming allies. And the tunnel entrances, I took photographs, they were published in the New York Post. The tunnel entrances were underneath the watchtowers of the UN peacekeeping force.
Which are paid by taxpayers' money.
Paid for by taxpayers' money. Western taxpayers' money. On this occasion, the wonderful peacekeeping force included some Sri Lankans and some Irish. Now, call me a cynic, but having seen peacekeeping forces in a number of countries over the years, my observation is that very few Sri Lankans or Irish, particularly Irish, will be likely to risk their lives by going over to Hezbollah and saying, I say, chaps, there's an awful lot of drilling going on here at the moment. And why are you carrying so many RPGs and rifles? This is meant to be a demilitarized zone.
It should also be noted that based on the 1701 UN resolution of 2006, Hezbollah is not supposed to be there. That's the only point why we have UN peacekeeping forces there, to make sure they're not there.
And it turns out, Israel is forever being accused of breaking UN resolutions. Well, I'm sorry, the UN itself has made its own resolutions totally ridiculous, pathetic, and ignorable by the fact that the resolution 7. I was there in Israel when 1701, the end of the 2006 war, happened. I remember very clearly thinking, that's not going to work very well, but we'll see. And in the years since, Resolution 1701, as you say, that Hezbollah were not meant to be in the south of Lebanon. Instead, Hezbollah built up a rocket base of about 160,000 rockets, long and short range, and built tunnels all throughout southern Lebanon, and camps, and paraded and much more. And they all did so under the eyes of the UN peacekeepers. I've seen these shams quite enough. And so when people say, we would have a peacekeeping force that would protect them, I just go, that worked so well in Srebrenica, didn't it? And it's worked so well in southern Lebanon. I mean, really, I want these lies and these untruths to just be pushed out of the way. It is so dishonest when people claim that this is what motivates them. That's not what motivates them. And by the way, sorry, one other quick addendum to that, which is, why the hell are these people so motivated by this single conflict? Why are they so motivated by it? This is a question I ask in the book and I try to answer. But why should it be that uniquely among the world's problems, the world's conflicts, the unresolved conflicts of the world, why should it uniquely be this one that the world should seek to solve or address or protest against or much more? There is an occupation, just to name one, an occupation of a European country by a NATO member, Northern Cyprus. Been going on for 50 years. It seems to be unresolvable that a EU member state has part of its territory, Cyprus, occupied by a NATO member, Turkey. But nobody knows about that, really, it seems. Nobody cares about it, it seems. There were no protests from one year to the next, never mind one day to the next, across the world. The world has not decided that, for instance, no justice will be able to occur for anyone until the Greek residents of northern Cyprus are allowed their homes back by Ankara. Nobody's arguing for that. Nobody's saying that trans rights and COVID rights and disability rights and women's rights and every other darn right you can invent that morning are not going to be achieved until the Cyprus question is solved. Nobody's saying it. Why? And you come in the end to the irrefutable fact it's because the Jews are not involved.